Everyone, one of my favorite quotes is tough times never last, but tough people do. And obviously, these are tough times. How about we get a little bit of perspective on this? And that is why we bring to you one of the finest episodes of the One Take Show. My name is Kaustubh Srivastav, and today we are in conversation with Mr. Chaitanya Puri. Sir has previously worked as a litigator and now Sir follows his passion. He is a life and business coach, he's also a writer, and Sir is also a public speaker. Today he will talk about this very interesting concept of building a bulletproof mindset, how empowering and disempowering mindset affects our daily behavior and daily success rate. We will learn a lot from this conversation, obviously. If you like this episode, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so that I can reach out to more and more people with these amazing conversations that we have. If you have any suggestions, feedbacks, make sure you reach out to me. I would absolutely love that. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump right into the conversation with Mr. Chaitanya Puri right here at the One Take Show. Hello, sir. Welcome to the One Take Show. I am so excited and so happy that you could find time to record this session with me. I've been following your work and I've been so inspired, not because of the consciousness that you try to disseminate amongst people who are a part of this industry or a part of other industries as well, but the kind of connect that people have with you. So, thank you so much, sir, for taking time out. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Completely my pleasure, Kaustubh. Thank you so much for you also taking time. It's a Saturday afternoon for you, I understand. So,
Thank you so much, sir. So before we begin and we try and talk about the various aspects of the teachings that you talk about, I would love to know about your journey with law. What was your journey with law? What motivated you to take law in the very first place? How was your experience in law school, and eventually what influenced you to then shift the said path? Eventually, I would love to know the entire story.
You brought up so many good memories. So I finished my law school in India and went to London to complete my master's in law. Been a lawyer for 8 years of my life. And since then, I did many cases in civil and criminal law for individuals, families, couples, businesses, some multinational companies. In my law experience, I realized that many cases could have been, like within a few meetings, be compromised or just settled. But they went on unnecessarily, got dragged on because there was a lack of skill to communicate, narrow mindsets, and an inability to see the larger picture. So when I was in the legal field, I used to feel very curious about the human behavior and the psychology behind it. That's why I started gaining knowledge in this field all these years. So it initially started as an interest, Kaustubh, but I soon realized that my passion lay in the field of personal development. And once you narrow down your, finding your real purpose in life, it should be a very organic next step to walk down that path. For example, in my case, I dealt with existential questions like many of us do today. And in that process of finding and improving myself through the field of psychology, self-help, etc., I understood that in the mindset of fulfilled and successful people is not something that they're born with. It's a learnable skill. You have to practice that. So once I understood this, I realized that my ultimate passion lay in helping people achieve their best versions and their goals, so that I could create some value in the lives of people. That was really my inspiration behind completely shifting into this field of personal development. But my journey in law has been extremely rewarding as well, especially the associations that I've made in over a decade. I have friends and mentors from whom I've learned so much over the years, and so I think I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Right, so that's a very inspiring story to know that you've had this entire journey that has in a way contributed to where you are and what you've achieved today, and that is a very important point that I would like to take away from that. Which brings me to my first question, which I have picked up from various talks that you've had recently. You've talked about belief system. You've talked about empowering and disempowering belief systems, and this is something that affects a lot of people. So I would like to know a little bit more about what exactly do you mean by belief system, and how does that impact professionals in our field.
So actually, before we look at belief systems, let's start with what is a belief. So belief is it's like a guiding principle, or a feeling of being certain about something. It's a foundation of every action or every inaction that you take in your life. A collection of all your beliefs make it a belief system. So your life is a manifestation of your belief system and the decisions that you take as a result of it. There are, those, sometimes you hear those voices in your head tell you, you're not good enough, you don't deserve this, you're not worthy. Or sometimes you may hear them say positive things like, life is good, or you're a champ. Now that voice is your belief system. So all the decisions that we make that shape our lives are subconsciously an extension of our belief system. And these decisions make us who we are. Any decision, in fact, which is contrary to our belief system will be resisted by it. So beliefs, now you spoke about empowering and disempowering. So beliefs are of two types. First is empowering beliefs and the second is disempowering beliefs. Empowering beliefs are literally beliefs that give you power and strength. They provide you with a positive and a motivating mindset. It's that voice in your head which tells you that you can be or do absolutely anything. On the other hand, a disempowering belief is something that will judge you, it will criticize you. It's that nagging voice in your head that tells you you're not smart enough, you don't deserve love, you don't have enough willpower, you don't have what it takes to succeed. So there are, a bundle of empowering and disempowering beliefs that we all have, but the idea is really to flush out the disempowering ones and retain and grow the empowering beliefs.
Right, sir. So the concept behind the idea of belief system essentially determines our behavior. It also determines how we approach our everyday activities. This is very important, especially for law students or the fresh law aspirants, because our industry obviously is very competition ridden. There is a cutthroat competition across the universities or across the professions, which breeds the ground for a lot of toxic feelings and toxic understandings. For example, jealousy or low self-esteem, self-doubt, and all these feelings. I believe at some point of time you might have encountered them as well. I would love to know how you have dealt with them and how could you somehow create a situation where you flourished as well as created ground for others to flourish as well.
So I think, like any other youngster, I also felt those challenges, firsthand. The minute you walk into a profession, no matter how many years of study you have backed up, it's a new challenge altogether, because it's just a different game. You're out in the open, everything's new, experiences are fresh, and you're trying out things for the first time. But over time, what I realized was that to get to the top in any industry, Kaustubh, regardless of it being law or whatever it is, there will always be cutthroat competition. That situation which creates that that mindset. And why is that? Because everyone wants it. But there are some people who want it a little more than others, right? And some of those people are willing to be flexible with their rules. So you may not have any control over how another person reacts when you succeed, nor should you. I mean, it's actually that person's agency to behave whichever way they want to behave. It's that person's belief system. But what you have control over is how graceful you are in your journey. So in my experience as a litigator and a life and business coach, I've noticed that 9 out of 10 times, if you are dignified in your approach and not be petty, it does not go unnoticed. It may take time, but it always takes time to build a reputation. So once you've established a reputation of being giving and respectful, even in defeat, many people around you start adjusting their behaviors to be aligned with yours, or at least they'll try and hide their dissatisfaction better. That toxicity will kind of seep out a little bit. So if there are people who exhibit toxic behavior and are not able to disguise jealousy, look at it like this, that it's actually a dead giveaway of their own insecurities. Once you start seeing such toxic conduct as a weakness in others, you'll stop looking at it as a personal attack. Now, having said that, I truly believe that healthy competition is something that must be encouraged. Why? Because it simply helps bring out the best in us. We all try to be our best, and when we all try to be our best, we all grow. See, all humans have this internal radar to know when somebody is toxic, negative, insecure, or to also find out when somebody is the complete opposite, meaning they're exhibiting positivity. a tip that I would like to give here is that since mentors and seniors play a very integral role in the legal profession, I would highly recommend choosing a workplace or a chamber or a senior or a firm, whatever, that exhibits confidence, security, and grace. Personally, this has really helped me. So yeah, so that will really help you keep toxicity at bay.
Right, sir, because that makes me feel a lot more empathetic towards the situation of the others and try to have a holistic view over the situation so that I don't get bogged down by my own personal feelings over the situation. Probably give me a better understanding how to deal with them. That's very interesting. This brings me to a very interesting concept that you have introduced recently. It is called having a mindset which is bulletproof in nature. And this bulletproof mindset somehow makes us much more stronger in order to deal with our challenges, in order to become the kind of person that we want to become, to achieve our goals that we wanted to achieve. So I would love to know for our listeners that what exactly is this bulletproof mindset and how can someone like a law student or a law aspirant can achieve the same.
All right. So this being bulletproof was basically one of the themes that I had in one of my webinars. And the idea behind this is really to load yourself with empowering beliefs and flush out the disempowering beliefs, which eventually makes you bulletproof, right? Your belief system becomes so solid. So being bulletproof is basically to solidify your mindset, your belief system and attitude to not just survive in difficult times, but thrive, right? Because when you're under pressure in some sort of a way, in this profession will throw a lot of pressure at you. What will be in your hands is only your belief system and how you act basis that belief system. So essentially, when you're bulletproof, you keep growing despite problems around you. So the question is, how do you become bulletproof? There are basically 2 steps to this. Break your disempowering beliefs and build your empowering beliefs. Okay. Now, for breaking your disempowering beliefs, I kind of suggest 4 steps for this. Okay. The first step is very simple. Everybody can do it. Everybody should do it. Grab a pen and a paper and make 3 columns in it. In the first column, write down your goals. Could be a financial goal, personal goal, professional goal, relationship goal, whatever it is. In the first column, just write down your goals. Second column, against that goal, write down what your inner voice tells you to convince you that you cannot achieve these goals. Basically, in the second column, you need to write down what you tell yourself to convince yourself that I cannot achieve the goal written in the first column. Okay. And for the time being, don't write anything in the third column. We'll get to that later. The second column, once you write it down, you will realize is your disempowering belief. Now, after the podcast is over, I would request you and your listeners to fill up that table with each of your goals and a corresponding disempowering belief that stops you from achieving it. The thing here is also that if you don't tackle your disempowering beliefs now, you will carry these for the rest of your life. So the first step is to identify a disempowering belief, and only then will you be able to eliminate it. Once you identify it, you need to create doubts in the logic of your disempowering belief. Okay. If there is a disempowering belief in you that I am not liked by many people, okay, a lot of people have that doubt, especially in moments when they're feeling low. I need you to attack that disempowering belief. Ask yourself, has everybody who's ever been in touch with me come and told me directly they don't like me? Or maybe there could be a scenario where those people may be having a difficult day themselves, and they did not have the bandwidth to really look at my feelings at that day. Or have I always gone out of the way to make them feel special and appreciated? So when you create these doubts and ask those questions to the disempowering belief, you will notice that the majority of your beliefs are really made up in your mind. The third step that I suggest is you need to check your state. There are so many states that we, undergo during the day, physical and mental. There'll be positive states like hope, excitement, joy, curiosity, fulfillment. And there'll similarly be some negative states, anger, frustration, insecurity, toxicity, unworthiness, shame, jealousy, so many things. Now, this step basically requires to be aware of the state we're in. Okay. Just very simply put, a good state of mind, it creates a conducive environment for an empowering belief. And a negative state will often lead us to cultivate a disempowering belief. if you're arguing with someone, or for that matter, it may even happen during your moods. If you're presenting an argument and there is a contrary view that's presented to you, there's often this resistance at that time that you will not be open to something else, because at that time you're consumed with the mindset of being proved right? So you're in a bad state of mind. You're not in a conducive state of mind, conducive for your empowering belief. So what we do is this is something we do even in our relationships. We end up taking bad decisions because of a negative state of mind, and in this combination of bad decisions plus a bad state, it can lead to a disempowering belief about relationships or partners in general. And we end up carrying such disempowering beliefs and emotional baggages to our future relationships as well. So when you start becoming more aware of your state and how you're reacting in that state, you'll notice that you'll have the ability to consciously mold your beliefs as well. The last step is something that something that everybody should be aware of at all times, and that is everything can be solved. This is something which anybody who's even considering stepping into the legal profession must be aware of, that everything has a solution. Okay, the most difficult of situations will also have a solution, and achievers understand that no problem is permanent. But a lot of us end up taking a small problem and making them permanent. See, there will be problems, don't get me wrong. In this profession, there'll be a lot of problems, but don't dwell on them for an unhealthy amount of time, because you'll just end up getting stuck there. So if there is a disempowering belief in you, it's either because you don't know what to do about it, or you feel unprepared to deal with it. So ask yourself, how can I solve this? And you need to throw some problem solving questions like, how can I solve this? How can I grow from this? How can I enjoy the process of growth and learning from this experience? Rather than thinking, why does this always happen to me? Why does the other person always get lucky? So those are just problem creating questions. So use problem solving questions rather than problem creating questions. So once you use the 4 steps of identifying your disempowering belief, creating doubt in them, checking your state and modulating your state, improving your state, and knowing that everything can be solved, you will be able to break every disempowering belief. So the next step is then, how do you build an empowering belief? Quickly, I give you 4 steps for that. First, very important thing, which I think every law student is already on path of, expanding your knowledge. Every time we learn something new, which is positive or helps us get closer to our goals, it's another coin that we add to our belief system's piggy bank. That's a term I love using. The bigger your piggy bank, the more resources you have. So expanding knowledge is critical to help you grow and clean your belief systems. There's an example I often give about a glass of dirty water. All right. Now, if I want to clean the glass of dirty water, the method is to pump in clean water, right? So that the glass of dirty water eventually, the dirty water gets flushed out from that glass. So the dirty water is your disempowering belief, and the clean water that you will pump into the glass is your empowering belief. So make sure you have a constant inflow of empowering beliefs that flush out the disempowering beliefs, and expanding knowledge helps pumping in empowering beliefs. The second step to build an empowering belief is to check your environment. You are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. That's something that we've all heard so many times. But we really underestimate this. This goes a long way to decide how your belief system will shape up. So you surround yourself with people who are driven, who are motivated, and you notice how you start thinking like that. The idea is to let your environment be empowering at all times. So if you pick up a job in a chamber or start working under a senior, or apply for a place in a firm, try and pick a team where you see that drive, that motivation to just be something that nobody else has ever become. At a smaller level, if I were to give you an example, if you spend a lot of time with a person who understands the importance of reading, you will also start appreciating and absorbing that belief system as well. So your environment plays a crucial role in cultivating your belief systems. Okay. Another step, the third step, would be to shift perspectives of past experiences. Sometimes we develop negative beliefs because of a painful past experience. If you worked with a boss in your past, you may, and if you worked with a difficult boss, say, in the past, or interned under somebody who may have felt difficult, or say studying under a professor who seems difficult, sometimes you may develop a belief that people in position of power are unpleasant people. Now, we can't really change what's happened in the past, all right? But we can certainly shift our perspectives to look at how we can benefit from them, right? There will be times in your first mood, for example, it's not like that presentation would not be the best presentation of your life. But when you look at it from hindsight, with the fresher perspective, with a more positive perspective, you'll notice that maybe I could have done this better. Maybe I could have said this in this manner, right? So that's the idea here. So your past painful experiences also have to go through that reframing. So give yourself that opportunity to look within, yourself and grow. Instead of thinking, say, all people who are in position of power are unpleasant, think that happened to me once, but that has no connection to my capabilities. And therefore, I will continue to add value wherever I work or wherever I study, because that's my belief system. And the fourth point would be break your own belief barriers. The story of Mr. Roger Bannister that I keep sharing. I love the story. So I'll quickly just take a few more seconds. So until May of 1954, the record of running a mile was over 4 minutes, all right, in the world. Medical professionals, in fact, declared that it was physically impossible for humans to complete 1 mile in less than 4 minutes. Now, this at that time was believed to be a fact. When it's a fact, it becomes a part of people's belief system. Now, this person, Roger Bannister, wanted to break this so-called fact. So he practiced. And during his practices, he simply imagined reaching the finishing line in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. He turned out to be the first human to have run a mile within 4 minutes and completed it at exactly 3 minutes and 59 seconds. So he single-handedly broke an entire disempowering belief system by many. The miraculous thing is that once he broke that barrier, 16 other people ran a mile under 4 minutes that year. Now that happened because Roger Bannister broke a limiting belief barrier. So you too must break limiting belief barriers for yourself. The more barriers you're able to break, the more confidence you'll gain in your ability to come through even in difficult times, such as what we're going through right now. And especially as a law student, when you intern at so many other places, you'll kind of look at people around you. Somewhere you might feel a little intimidated. Somewhere you might feel overwhelmed. But it's at that time that you need to engage this muscle and realize that every belief can be broken, especially a negative one. So when you start breaking that negative limiting belief for yourself, you'll start realizing that everything is solvable. And as you keep progressing in your relationships, in your profession, in your your goals with respect to your body, your finances, everything, you'll realize that every barrier can be overcome. And that will certainly add a lot to your confidence. It's a slightly long answer, but I thought it was important to put it all out.
It was absolutely necessary because I can connect all the dots as to how I can build my self-confidence and my self-image using these techniques, how I can change my perspectives to multiple situations that have affected me in the past and are going to affect me in the future, how I can change how I approach them, how I handle them, and how I somehow tackle them step by step by having this mindset of removing the disempowering beliefs and inculcating the empowering beliefs, which in a sense make me stronger. This in a sense allows me to ask you one of the last set of questions, but a very important set of questions is that like a lot of law students who are first generation lawyers, we experience a lot of anxiety. We feel we are really scared to enter a field, let's say like litigation, because it is a very it's an industry which is not really conducive for first generation lawyers. And you've talked about the importance of skills in every person who should excel in a particular field. You talked about importance of communication, importance of various other such skills. My very basic and straightforward question to you, coming from a very selfish place, is that if someone is to grow, and someone is to increase their chances of success, what all skills should they inculcate? Not just very profession specific, not just legal profession specific, but the certain skills that should make us more conducive to success, and something that we should inculcate in ourselves, especially during times like lockdown when we have time to our disposal.
I think more than say physical skills, we can really club this in the category of a mindset shift, because that really covers all of it. So how you can become stronger with your mindset shift, especially in this profession. I remember one of my very dear seniors in when I had just started out once told me that this is a very rewarding profession, but also very merciless one. And at that time, I was also first generation lawyer, so I took it with a pinch of salt. All right, fine, we'll see. I feel I'm good. All right. So very quickly, you learn to be humble. You may feel like a king one day, and you may be shown your place the next day. So the highs and lows of this profession swing very well. One thing you can do to develop mentally is to create an anchor internally that keeps you stable. All right, because things around you in the profession and even the lockdown, these are things that are happening beyond your current control. So what's happening outside is not something in your control, but what you can do for yourself inside is something that's in your control. In my experience, and I've really thought a lot about this, there are certain mental traits that really help you stay afloat and make you stronger in difficult times and in not so difficult times. All right. And if you just have those mental traits aligned, keep going over them over and over again, you will realize that it's not that difficult. All right. So I have like maybe 6 to 8 points that I want to discuss, and that's something that's personally really helped me. So the first one is you need to respect the grind. Okay. So this is a bitter pill, but this profession requires you to work very hard. It requires you to expand your mental capabilities on a regular basis. All right. If you want to really thrive here, there is no comfort zone for your mental capabilities. It always has to be stretched. There'll be times when you would enjoy the work, and there'll be times when you would maybe not find it enjoyable at all. But you need to understand that it's the good work combined with the work that you may not always want to do, to get you where you want to be. So from the get-go, learn to respect the process, learn to respect the grind, including the good and the bad. It's a package. The next step would be patience. You may be a top dog in your law school days. Everyone's felt that I'm the senior, I know my stuff, performing well, doing extracurriculars, killing it. But you enter the profession as a speck of dust. Sounds harsh, but have patience to create space for yourself. It takes time. People have invested decades learning this craft. So why should you get to jump the line? So develop patience, because one way or another, you will have to learn it. Another point that comes to mind is optimism. Nobody will have the time to mollycoddle you and tell you about the spark that they see in your eyes. You need to do that for yourself. You need to be your own coach also sometimes. At the end of a grueling day, that optimism that you feed yourself will help you spring out of bed the next day into another grueling day. All right. The next step would be a deliberate plan. Okay. I encountered many people in the legal fraternity who had no real plan about how they wanted to design and construct their careers. They were okay with just going with the flow or reacting to circumstances. Many are not deliberate about it. But those who are sure of what they want always seem to be content, because they find a real yardstick to measure how far away from their plan they are. Okay, so it's always better to deliberately plan your career. The fifth point would be have clarity of thought. I'm speaking from the experience of a litigator because that's what I've done. When you argue before a judge, don't expect them to know the brief as well as you do. Firstly, they have like 80 matters to get through every day. You should be able to explain the matter to a judge in 5 lines, okay? Starting from who you are or who you're representing, what are you seeking, how do you have a right to that, and how are you deprived of that. All right, these 4 main things in 5 lines it should be so clear in your head. All right, the clarity should be to the extent that even a 10-year-old child should be able to be immersed in that story. When that clarity is missing, you lose the judge instantly. Okay. The next step would be keep your ethics clean, and this is something that I really stress upon. From the very beginning itself, you must tie your identity to having a good sense of ethics. See, this is a profession that lets you practice for as long as you live. When you look back at your legal career, ideally it should be something that makes you feel proud, respected, and at peace with yourself. If your ethics are loosely held, somewhere it will create a mental turmoil, maybe later, and that sort of turmoil and baggage is not worth it when all is said and done. Another lesson which also ties in with patience: be thick-skinned, easy to understand. You will be scolded, you will be scoffed at, you will probably be politely insulted many times in court. And this is regardless of how many times you may have won the Vienna moot in your college days, okay? Rejections are a part and parcel of this profession and in life in general. Do not personalize it. It'll be difficult, but consistently keep reminding yourself that every top lawyer has had their fair share of reprimands. And remember, it's the price you pay for growth. No pain, no gain. So it's that price you pay for growth. All right. So develop a thick skin if you don't already have one. And the last point would be, which is something that I think has really helped me: stop comparing yourself with others. Everyone has their own journey. In this profession, some people will have a head start, maybe their contacts or whichever way, and some will not have a head start. Don't let that defeat you in the beginning. It's not a race. It's your independent run. So run at your own pace with blinders on your eyes, with a focus on your personal goals. If you develop these mental, traits that we discussed, 100% you'll be able to create a reliable anchor, internally reliable anchor for yourself that will ensure that you become stronger in the field of law and as a person in general. Yeah.
Right, sir. I believe this was possibly one of the most personal conversations that I've had, where I could actually talk about the real issues that have affected law students on a much more personal level, not just academically or career-wise, but stuff that has motivated us, demotivated us in the past. A very fruitful conversation. I'm really glad. Do you have any message for our listeners who would be watching this and would be learning so much from this conversation?
I think something that, if I could just quickly maybe, when I look back at my law days and my law school days, there is something that really helped me keep an internal check. Apart from developing mental traits, what I did was I ensured that my self of identity, my idea of who I am, was something that I kept very grounded and very solid. And I used to engage a couple of things, that to just ensure that I keep doing that with myself. One was I always tried to have a growth mindset. Okay, I always sought, consistent progress and being better than the previous day, even if it's just by 1%, but just keep trying to get a little better every day. Over time, you will see that compound. The second thing that I did for myself, which I think is something that the sooner the better you start, is you develop standards for yourself. You have basically standards are something that we are willing to accept for ourselves. Okay. if you have a high standard of fitness, you'll ensure that you work out regularly or eat healthily. Similarly, people with a high standard of academic performance are deliberate about their study or work schedule. So you develop a higher standard for yourself. Don't look at what people have their standards as around you. You develop a higher standard. Okay. A short way of developing of inviting success in your life would be if you keep assessing those standards and keep raising that bar for that standard. Another thing would be treat others the way you are willing to be treated. We understand this. So you develop consideration for people, develop empathy for people, treat others with respect. Always and always add value to whatever you're doing. Don't just show up as a pretty face. Simply showing up is a waste of your time, is a waste of everybody else's time. Add value to whatever you do. Okay, it could be even for your loved ones, it could be in law school, it could be at work, whatever you do. Okay, think beyond yourself. Practice integrity. Now, this is a very this profession will provide you a lot of leeway in terms of how much integrity you wish to impose on yourself. In almost a decade of law practice, you will come across, like I did, many legal professionals. But the ones you will truly remember and respect are the people who exhibited integrity. And it would become a part of their reputation, and the entire fraternity respects that about those people. So uphold a high degree of integrity for yourself. Another would be take responsibility for your mistakes. You will make mistakes, big and small. They're an integral part of life. Instead of seeing them as failures, see them as stepping stones or lessons for a better version of you. So people generally resist, when they make a mistake, they don't want to own it. So I suggest you own it, take responsibility for it, apologize to the ones who got affected, and make it right. And the last one would perhaps be react smarter. You must have the power over your emotions and your reactions. You don't control your situations of how other people will react, but how you react is something that's completely in your control. So stop personalizing or victimizing yourself, even if you're in law school. Oh, I'm a first generation this, I'm this, I don't have this many contacts. No, stop personalizing or victimizing yourself. React smarter and keep your eye on the larger goal. Whatever goal you set for yourself, keep your eye on the larger goal. Yeah.
Right, sir. I believe this was absolutely necessary and so gold, so beautiful for everyone who would listen to this podcast now. Will add so much value. They will learn so much. I have learned so much. This has been I will come off clean. This has been a very selfish endeavor for me as well. I've learned so much from this conversation. Thank you so much, sir, for taking time out. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation in the very first place. I had a wonderful time. I hope you had a good time too.
Likewise, Kaustubh. This was actually an absolute pleasure. And I hope you keep, just doing this over the years, keep improving what you already have done. And it's such great work that you've done over the years. And I truly wish you all the best. And I hope we stay in touch, and we also, reminisce about this struggle in your life and this grind that you're going through, because I'm sure that you have a very bright future.
Right, sir. I will make it a point that I will stay in touch with you, because I'm sure I will be needing a lot more of guidance, and I believe all my listeners will need a lot more of guidance. So we will make the point that we'll stay in touch with you with everything that you put out for us to learn from. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity today.
Anytime. If somebody who wishes to seek some guidance and not able to find me, just go to my website, chaitanyapuri.com. You have all the details there, my social media accounts. So that's the best way to get in touch with me. But anytime, feel free to get in touch with me in any manner, and I try to personally respond as soon as possible.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kaustubh.